All right, he's back. Welcome to Bleav in Chargers with the great Lorenzo Neal, presented by FanDuel. Huge thank you to our friends over there letting us put this together every single day. Lo, great to have you back. And I will just start with this. Everybody is asking where you are. So as I have now been to almost every camp practice at the Bolt, the question I get more than anything else, when's Lo coming down? As though like we're brothers and we live together and I'm
Yes,
keeping tabs on
yes.
what you're doing. So for all the folks, and they all Bleav in Chargers, they watch, they celebrate it, and they all want to know if they're going to see Lo Neal at a training camp practice. And if so, can you tell them when? Because they want to put their eyes and their hands on you.
Well, Money, you're my brother from another mother. Let the people know I'm trying to get down on the 10th, which is
Okay.
Monday. Or for sure next week. I'm trying to come in to watch training camp. Been just kind of, very, very busy. It's hard to get down to LA, but I tell you, it's exciting. Every camp, every time you go, to get to see so many of these young guys go out and compete at a very high level. Love training camp. Love those moments to see you out there, Money, because you're the man, the myth, and the
Yeah.
legend. So I'm excited to get there.
I want you to get down so you can get on that field. Look, I'm not a guy that belongs in the Hall of Fame. I didn't pave the way for one All-Pro after another. I don't get invited onto the field, but no doubt if Lo Neal comes down, I saw your former teammate, Cromartie was out.
Oh,
And, dude, every time you see him, it's just like, it's a cheat code, man. That guy played freaking corner, and he's built like a defensive end.
he
And
really is.
it's just nuts. So he was down last week. When did I saw him Saturday. I think Friday or
Okay.
Saturday. It was either Friday or, yeah, I think it was Saturday. He was out. I was talking to John Spanos when he cruised by and was chatting. And then all of a sudden, Antonio just whoop right onto the field,
Yeah.
chatting with coaches. So I want to get low down. I want you out there with Mike McDaniel. I want you out there with the running backs. Alec Ingold's a big part of this, man. So you got to put
I
your arm around
know.
him, the fullback, and get him ready to
Definitely.
roll.
Absolutely. I can't wait to get down there and just all the excitement we're hearing, especially about the young guys, Thompson, receiver. I can't wait to go over some of these guys and just talk about what we've seen and what you've seen thus far at practice. I know Smith has shown some flashes at safety, the receivers. So
Yeah.
I'm just excited to hear about, I know you're up close and personal. And the one thing, Money, when you're out there, you do enjoy watching these guys compete and that they are doing, and just can't wait to kind of let the listeners and myself, bring us, up to the game and what you've seen thus far in training camp with these young guys.
Yeah, yesterday was fun. I went down to San Diego. Couldn't go down again today just because I have some stuff at the radio station that I had to be up here for. But yeah, excuse me. Yesterday, just electric crowd. Great running into all the people in the concourse. And while I was just sitting observing, people would kind of catch a glance of me and we'd chat for a while. And that part of it was fun. And yeah, it was a spirited practice. It was the first padded practice, but as Coach Harbaugh told us before, he was doing he did the pre-practice presser, and he said, it's going to look a lot like it looked without pads. He's like, we're not cracking skulls and getting after it. It's still a ramp up process. So there wasn't a lot of contact. There's a little bit more, a little bit more contact between corners and wide receivers, a little bit more engagement between D linemen and offensive linemen, but nothing, it's not there yet. You're not really kind of getting the full padded
Right.
practice feel. But yeah, I think yesterday was sort of the first day that we got to see, the D line, O line battle. I feel like, it was just kind of hard to interpret. You could every now and then see a get off and like, ooh,
Right.
that was something. But yesterday, I felt like we um, saw a defensive line really kind of put some good looking plays together, and take advantage. That first team defense versus second team offense really kind of had their way, as they should.
Right.
First team offense seemed to have their way with second team defense, as they should. Herbert was darn near perfect in 7-on-7s. Red zone looks so good. Just so many open guys on these red zone plays, and there's just so much happening, so much pre-snap motion. You feel like every time you look up, there's someone open in the end zone, and it's Q in the middle of the end zone. It's Trey in the back of the end zone for a toe tap. That was on Saturday. It's Ladd, who had like a 25-yard touchdown down the right sideline yesterday, just dusted his guy. It was fun. Like it was entertaining, I think, for the people that showed up. It wasn't
Right.
sort of your standard, Mike McDaniel's offense is fun to watch, and there's a lot of explosives out there.
And when you was talking about explosive, of course, you knew that, of course, those guys, the guys you mentioned, the three receivers, been in the league a couple years now,
Yeah,
and you have some experience. There's a guy that you talked about, hey, what Mike McDaniels, what he wants to do with this offense. You talked about what he had in Miami. And they went out this year in the draft, and you go out and bring in Thompson,
yeah.
speedy receiver, one of the fastest guys. Have, reading some of the things out there talking about how quick he can open up the field. Have you seen? Has he showed that? Is this a guy? Can he catch? Does he have good hands? Can he track the ball down? What have you seen? If I just say, let's just focus on the young guy. Is he a guy that you think will find his way on the field some part of this season? Is he a guy that's going to contribute? How do you look, or is it still too early? Or have you seen enough athletic ability to show that he can be on the field?
Yeah, I mean, you see the speed, right? And you know that low. I mean, you've been on the field with speed, and you know what it looks like when it's just like, hey, it's undeniable. He's the fastest guy on the field. It's not close. I shouldn't say it's not
Really?
close. There's Keaton Mitchell's fast. There's other fast guys on this team. Darius Davis is fast, but Brenan Thompson's fast, man. And you can see it. And I would just say, judging by the rotations, yeah, he's going to have a role. He's out there in three receiver sets: Q, Ladd, and Brenan Thompson, not Trey. I think because in those moments they're going to want that speed element out there. So we talked about it last week after Justin's first presser. He had a presser again yesterday where I'm trying to think of some of the stuff that jumped out in his presser. Yeah, the best thing that came out of his presser yesterday, before as I stray from the point, but Slater went to the tent yesterday
Mm.
for a minute, and of course we all freaked out. And then he came out, and I must have missed probably 10 minutes of practice just because I was staring at him and his body language, trying to figure out,
Right.
and then he started kind of laughing with Joe Alt, and then I saw him talking to Justin, and then I saw him working on. So Branson Taylor came over and was kind of asking him some questions, and I could see him going through technique with Branson. So I was like, okay. And then in the
He's good.
presser yesterday, Justin was asked about Slater, and I can't remember who did it. It might have been Vinny. I don't remember who asked the question, but they did a really good job of not letting him off the hook. Justin said, I'm concerned about, or he was asked about Slater's. He's like, look, you'll have to ask him how he was feeling. And then they were like, well, yeah, but you said you talked to him, so like, can you share with us what he said? And he said, yeah, he said he wanted to go back in, and I told him to relax. So that's good news there that we got that from
That's great
Justin
news.
yesterday in the presser, and it seems like Slater's fine. They didn't put him back in practice. I would be surprised if they put him out there today. We're recording this before practice would have happened on Wednesday in San Diego. So that was the biggest thing to come out of it. But yeah, in terms of Thompson, Justin has already gone on record saying he's going to be, and I'm doing quotes, very, very good. That is what his quote was. And I think, I think when you have Mike McDaniel on record in the draft room saying, if you don't get excited about drafting this guy, then you're dead inside.
Mm.
So that tells you that he expects him to have a role. I think if you go through the draft, the draftees, or even the undrafted free agent, to me, look, Mesidor had one rep where the get off was just stupid. He was in the backfield before the tackle had any idea what was going on, and you can see that. You can see the explosiveness. That was good. I think we might be in for a red shirt year from our guy Jake Slaughter. I think he may just end up being our backup center, which is great. There's nothing
Right.
wrong with that. I
Right.
think with a second round pick, you'd probably prefer they work their way in and be a starter by the end of the year, and that may happen. Coach Harbaugh said that, let's see, I got my Harbs thing here, 66, way ahead of schedule. That's the way he described it. But we asked him about the left guard. He said Aushika is the most consistent, something we've been talking about here the whole time. I think he's going to end up
Right.
being the starter. I felt that way from OTAs. He said that Trey Pipkins is one of their top 5 guys, and that is why he's rotating in at left guard, because they want to play their 5 best players. And I think the
Right.
interesting thing with Trey is feels like more of a tackle than a guard to me, but in this scheme, with his size and truly he's an athlete. He is much more nimble than he is strong. So this may fit him better, and he may be able to. And I guess the way that when he first went out there last week, the coaching staff told us that it was Trey that went to them and said, "Hey,
Mm.
I'm happy if you want me to work in there. Let me know. I'd be happy to do it." And I think they were like, "Absolutely. Let's get a look." So you've got 5 guys working at that guard position. Branson Taylor in his second year, Jake Slaughter, their second round pick,
Mm.
Aushika, like we talked about, Trevor Penning. And so, I think
Well,
if I had to guess, I would say it's probably going to be Aushika. And that's what Harbaugh said yesterday. He said, look, he's in the lead right now.
yeah, when you talk about these guys, these 5 guys are competing at the guard position, is these guys are swing guys too, though, right? They play more than just guard.
Right.
You're looking at the guard position, you're saying, okay, Sheik is going to probably get the nod. You're saying, okay, who is going to be a guy that you can put at left guard or right guard, or even possibly tackle, because you know it just as well as I know it, Money. This is a numbers game. Also, I wish you could keep all. You
Yeah.
want to keep all the linemen, but you can't. So if you're looking at it in that perspective, if you're saying Slaughter's going to do a redshirt year, I know they got him as a second rounder. If you're saying, hey, this is a guy may not touch the field much, and this is a year of him to build, who is those extra linemen that you think that are versatile enough? Is it Penny again that's versatile enough to play,
Yeah.
tackle and guard? Because that's what it's going to come down to as far as the numbers game.
It's a great point, Lo, because you're probably going to carry 9. Like in a crazy year, you'd carry 10, but I think, 9 is normally what the number is for most teams. Um, and I don't know who the odd man out's going to be. Look, they're obviously going to keep Burke and Slater. So beyond your starters, you've got those 2 right there. And then it's a question of who are the next 2. So it's Slater, Biotish, Strange, Alt, and then I'll just put Aushika in there. So there's your starting 5. And then behind them, like I said, Burke and Slaughter. Now you're at 7. And then I think you kind of start looking at it and it's like, all right, obviously Trey, there's 8 because he's your swing. If he doesn't be the starter, he's your immediate backup tackle. And then it comes down to Trevor Penning, um, and I think probably at this point Branson Taylor. Their 6th round pick from last year. I think that's probably what the battle is. Penning was really effective as their 6th offensive lineman.
He
Um,
was. He played
yeah,
well. He came in and spared guys. So with that being said, who can you see possibly Money saying, okay, look, if this team releases that would probably get to the practice squad? Do you see anyone, or do you say, hey, these guys, if someone's released, they're gone?
well, I mean, you know how there's such a premium on offensive linemen. That's the
Yeah,
trick. And
yeah,
so I think like
yeah.
when you're looking at their 7th round picks, as I'm looking at it right now, or Logan was a 6th round pick. That's right. So was Harkey. So they had their 2 6th round picks. Logan would probably get claimed, I think, if you tried to
Okay,
get him, just because he's got that, he was like 50 starts in college, every position
okay,
but center, captain of the team. Like, that's just a guy that's probably going to get scooped up. I think Harkey, you can probably keep on I don't think he would be, because he's more of a project. He's got all the physical traits. He's just not quite there
right,
yet. Um, so I think that's probably, you know, I think it's up to, and I think at this, like Branson really got himself in shape. He looks like a different player. His body looks much better. Last year he was and he was coming off an injury, so he had not played, and I think you cut him some slack for that. But this year he came into camp in great shape. Coach talked about it yesterday, how important that flexibility is when you are keeping guys. The fact that Taylor
yeah,
can play tackle, can play guard, same with Pipkins, and I think that's the question about Penning. They threw him out there for at tackle, I think against the Broncos, and he got just eaten alive.
right.
It was brutal. And so if they just see him as a guard and a 6th offensive lineman, do they just say, do we really? I mean, we got Charlie Kolar, we got Alec Ingold. Do we really need? If we're trying to figure out what are the 9 best guys, is he better than what we have with a younger guy in his second year in Branson Taylor? And it's not like there's a heavy financial commitment if you cut him. I
Right.
think it wasn't a big number. So it's going to be, yeah, I think that's something that's still hashing itself out, no doubt.
Yeah, and you offensive lineman, you know that it's always gonna, guys go injured, get injured, go
Right.
down. So that's a revolving door. So that offensive line is never really settled, because you never know what's going to happen, especially with those guys. When you stay on the offensive side of the ball, and let's talk about a little bit about Mitchell. I mean, what he's bringing, to the running back room. I've heard some things about, hey, how explosive and how Herbert can hook up with him. What have you seen? Is talking about the running backs. What do you? Let's go through them as a whole. What do you think about Mitchell and about the running back room in general?
Yeah, I think he's, if you're talking about like a running back battle between Kamani Videll and Mitchell, it feels like Mitchell's ahead of him. They're going to carry three; they'll carry those three, but I do think Mitchell is going to have a pretty healthy amount of snaps. He's out there quite a bit, especially in the passing game. A lot of red zone, and how he can affect that game in the red zone as a pass catcher. The Pats haven't come on yet, right? So we
Right,
know that
right.
Kamani really stepped up last year in pass protection,
He did.
compared to what he was his rookie year. So that's a big part of it. I don't know how much pass pro he's asked to do in Baltimore. He didn't have a lot of targets. He had minimal touches, and they were design plays, where you want to get that explosive element out there and see if you can pop one when he hits the field. But yeah, he's been out a lot. Look, we're so used to not seeing any running back screens from Greg
Right,
Roman. So like the fact that we
right,
see like we had an
right.
entire period of screens that yesterday where Herbert was just throwing screens to different guys, tight ends and tunnel screens and bubble screens and all of these things yesterday. So I think to me, if you were to say what are the most settled rooms, what are the most unsettled rooms, I think the two on especially on offense, um, most settled rooms, and I think that's ahead of quarterback too. I think we got ourselves a competition for backup quarterback with Trey and DJ. I feel like DJ has really taken a step, and Trey has just struggled with consistency so far in the preseason, and his accuracy is I don't know what's going on, but just has been a little bit wild this preseason. So I just think running back, it's going to be Videll, Mitchell, and Hampton, and tight end, it's going to be Gadsden, Kolar, and Njoku. Like those six players are set. You know,
Settled. Yeah.
Wide receiver, I think you have the question with Double D with Darius Davis, and we know how effective he is as a returner and how much Ficken wants him on this team as a returner. But I think when you start going through that wide receiver room, and it's like, all right, you got Q and Trey and Ladd, you got Brenan Thompson, and now it may come down to Darius Davis or Keandre Lambert Smith. Are you gonna carry six instead of five? They've done it before. They've carried six before, but I think that's kind of that's the question there. And then obviously we just got done talking about offensive line. So
So if you carry six, so let's say you carry six receivers possible, four backs, right? One fullback, you're gonna carry those three running
right,
backs, correct? Is
right,
that's so it's gonna be a total of four backs
yeah,
total.
yeah, with
Fullbacks
Ingold in
and
there, yeah.
yeah. So
So
you're looking at that's 10, right?
well, you got what
Six and
two quarterbacks, four backs, that's six, three tight ends, that's nine offensive linemen, that's 18. And now you've got to ask yourself, is it, is it six or is it five on that side? And so, or do they want to carry 10 linemen because they don't want to let Logan Taylor go, thinking that he's going
no,
to, you could end up carrying 10 there. So um, I think that's the trick. And as the math starts coming into focus, is it, do you sacrifice a wide receiver if you can get Brenan Thompson to return punts and you feel good about Keaton Mitchell returning kicks? How involved is Darius going to be in the offense as a wide receiver because he was that speed element? Well, now you have that with
right,
Brenan Thompson, um,
right.
and so I think that'll be that'll kind of be the interesting one as
Where
to
where if that's the interesting one, how do you feel that when you look at the offensive coordinator, the OC, does he like these? So what do you think in his perfect mind? Of course, he wants to keep everyone, but how do you think these guys fit his offense? Do you say, okay, we can let one of these guys go because both of them bring the same thing
yeah.
for speed?
I mean, I think so much of it also comes down to the front office, right? Like they drafted Keandre Lambert Smith last year in the 5th round and sung his praises. We were hearing how he used Sanjay's one of his favorite receivers in the draft, kind of thing. And they did not draft Darius Davis. And Double D has been injured his 2 years that this regime has been here. He had that exceptional rookie season where he was an All-Pro punt returner.
Right,
Average over
right.
12 yards per return, electric. Um, but we haven't seen that in 2 years. So I think that's probably where the danger comes in. And I think if you're a Jim Harbaugh coach team and you've got this situation at left guard that still appears to not be settled, you drafted a guy in the 2nd round and called him a left guard. And I just don't quite see that working itself out yet. They They tried to get a left guard in free agency and just couldn't get it to line up money-wise. Zion decided to take more money and go to Cleveland. Elton Jenkins, decided to take more money and go to Cleveland. So here we are. Does that mean you got to carry 10 and just try to kind of have a little bit more depth in that room? I think that's sort of what that side of the ball probably come down to, right?
If you do that money, so if let's just say you say, okay, they're going to keep 10, okay, maybe they're going to keep 6 receivers. Do you look at it because you're seeing the way that Smith is, progressing as a safety? Do you think that puts stress on the safety position, saying, okay, can we let the old man Jefferson go? Or do you think Tony
No.
brings too much? So how do you look at that?
Tony's there.
Safety.
Yeah, I
He's
think
there.
to me, it's funny, Lo. I think the safety room is settled. I think.
Oh,
Well, I shouldn't say
you
that.
got some good.
I shouldn't say that because I think Kendall Williamson is a favorite. He's a favorite of this special teams. He's a great special team. He had a great play yesterday, swatted away a pass to Keaton Mitchell, closed the gap real good toward the corner of the end zone. Mitchell was coming out on a swing route, and Williamson closed the distance real nice and slapped that thing away. And he was really good in the preseason last year. So, look, when it comes to safeties, we'll call Derwin a safety, but he's really kind of your big nickel at this point. But it's Tony, it's Genesis, it's Mickens, it's Elijah Molden, and then we'll put Derwin in there. And then I think the question would be Williamson because of his special teams value, and he has flash. Then you got your corners. Obviously, you got Cam, Tarheeb, Dante Jackson. There's your big 3, and Dean Leonard, who is your best special teams player outside of Delshon Phillips. So there's 4. Derwin's kind of 5. So we'll call Derwin a corner. We'll say that's 5 corners and 4 safeties at this point. And then I think you're looking at 2 guys that are popping right now, Rodney Shelley, Avery Smith. And let's not forget last year, Nico Reed was our undrafted free agent. I thought he played darn well last year, so how do you fit in there? And then remember, Eric Rodgers had those 2 picks, broke his leg, was out for the year. So, that's going to be super competitive, and we know they love carrying defensive backs. Ryan Ficken loves defensive backs on special teams. So, that's
You want guys to run. Special teams, you want guys to be able to get downfield. You want them to run and be able to cover and hit.
Yeah.
And you need those corners, you need those safeties because they know how to tackle and they can run. So, special teams, everyone talks about offense and defense. I'm a huge believer. Offense counts as a third, defense counts as a third, and special teams counts as a third of the game. You're getting 15 to 20 or 20 to 30 plays of special teams. You're kicking off the ball, you're returning the ball, you're punting the ball 5 to 7 times, you're returning the ball.
And with Junior, versus you've got 2, 3 really exceptional special teams linebackers. Two, I'll say 2 exceptional in Delshon Phillips and Troy Dye, right? And then, last year Marlo Wax really flashed, and I think he's a lot to make this team. I think just with his special teams and what he showed in Week 18 when he was put into the rotation. So now you got Junior Colson on the bubble. Now, yesterday, our guy, he popped, man. Nadame Tucker out of Western Michigan.
Really?
Oh yeah, he popped yesterday, and coach said that was going to happen. When you put the pads on, watch what this guy can do. Yeah. There were no sacks, but he was in the backfield twice, maybe 3 times. From watching him, I think it was you would count. I'm trying to think. I would count probably 2, maybe 3 that you would say were sacks for Nadame. And he's someone that Chris O'Leary coached to 14.5 sacks, 21.5 tackles for loss last year, led the NCAA in both, and he's
popped,
showing out. So
is he?
And I think that could be trouble for Kyle Kennard. Even though he was drafted in the 4th round last year, Defensive Player of the Year in the SEC, it just, Mesidor flashed. You've got Nadame flashed, and I just didn't see that from Kennard yesterday. Obviously, look, we still got a long way to go before they got to trim 53.
Right.
But I think that's, you're looking for that 4th edge behind Mesidor, Thule, and Khalil. And I think between Bud Dupree, Kyle Kennard, and Tucker, that's a real competition now. After what kind of we saw yesterday, that's competition.
Without a doubt. Okay, let's put Cleo, and we already know Cleo is those 2 guys that you mentioned, and Curly, they're on another level. Then you place Mesidor. How good? What is he? For sure, the 3rd best.
No doubt.
After Turley, him and Mac. Yeah. After that, it's obvious what he can do. It's obvious that this guy's another level. You see him split 2 double teams and split them and get through. What has he shown? What have you seen? Of course, we've seen him in college.
Yeah.
but just without pads, what have you seen to say, hey, this guy, I like where they drafted him. I like they took him in the first round. This guy has it.
Yeah, I think it's just the get off low. You can see the get off. You just see explosive, man. Like he's I think of all the players, we're less than yeah, exactly. What are we? A week and a day out, right? We're gonna be in Houston a week from Thursday. He's probably the guy I'm most excited to see. I want to see him out there
Really?
in live action and just see. And he's just no, he had a presser last week. He had a presser on Saturday, um, and I think it was Saturday.
Yeah.
Might have been Friday. One of those days he had his presser, and he's just all business, man. He's just, anything surprise you? No. Then, did the playoff get you more prepared for this? Nah, I just prepare for every game, and I know when I go out there, I'm gonna beat some people up. It's just kind of, what about learning from Khalil? He's like, Khalil's been incredible, man, but you just do your preparation, and you know what you can do, and you're just gonna go out there and do it, man. It's just football. Doesn't matter what level, doesn't matter what field. I know what I'm capable of doing, and I'm just gonna go out there and do it.
Oh,
And
so you saying he has that confidence? You say he's got that? It. He's like,
oh
I don't need a self starter. I don't need. He's saying, I'll take your help, but I know what I need to do. So he's like that already. So
oh yeah,
he's like, put me in the game and I'll show you. That's
yeah.
how he is, huh?
I think it was just more of the you're a rookie. How different is this? Is this a big jump? And it was more just like, no, no, it's not. It's and that's kind of what they drafted him for, right? He's 25 years old. He's older than Thule.
Right.
Like
Right.
they wanted a guy that was ready to go, and here's a dude that wrecked college football last year. I mean, wrecked college football last year. So I'm excited to see that. Yeah, he's that's one I'm not worried about at all. I think Tomlinson is flashing. Their nose tackle that they signed away from the Cardinals.
Right.
He and Tier are going to be a nice pair together. They each had did Tomlinson have a sack? I know Tier had what you would count as a sack yesterday. Tomlinson got back there once as well. So defense, man, in 11s, the defense had the advantage yesterday, man. They were flying. They were flying around, and they were in the backfield. The run game was not very effective when it was 11s and they were out there. So tip of the cap to Chris O'Leary, or as they call him, CO,
Yeah.
and what they had going. It was pretty impressive.
Well, I got to do it. I mean, if it wouldn't be me if I didn't talk about it. What about my man Gold? Have you seen
Ingold,
him butt anybody up? Have you seen him come downhill? The fullback
not yet.
position is this guy not yet? Has he
They're not
caught
doing
the
it yet.
K4 fullback in the flat? Have we seen a little K4 K5
Yeah,
fullback in the back act like it's power and then slip him out? Have we seen any of that
we
yet?
have
What's going on with my fullback position?
that we've seen, Low. That we've seen. I saw Herbert give him a high five yesterday after a red zone
Okay,
play, so that was good.
can
They were in
appreciate
the red
that.
zone. I saw him get a little high five to number 30. I do think if you were to set an over under, like our friends at FanDuel. By the way, speaking of FanDuel, why don't we get a look at those Super Bowl
Let's do it.
odds? Let's get a look at those Super Bowl odds there, Lindsay. But yeah, if you were to put an over under on, and here you see it, Chargers at plus 1600. Still behind the Bills and Ravens, but kind of right there in the mix. You don't see a couple of teams on there. I know the Chiefs are right behind them on FanDuel at plus 1,700. Patriots, I think, are either plus 17 or plus 18 in step with the Lions. So still a lot of faith in the Chargers here as we're starting to get a little bit more of an elongated look. Rams still prohibitive favorites at plus 550, but we'll take it. And we get to see the Bills, the Ravens, the Patriots, the Chiefs, the Broncos, the Texans, all of those teams the Chargers will play in the regular season. So it'll be an
Wow.
opportunity to see whether or not they should be above them in Super Bowl odds or behind them in Super Bowl odds. But
Manny,
to
where's those Seattle? Where's Seattle on that list? What's up
Seattle
with
is
this
actually the
list?
second favorite. They are plus 1,100, so they are
Okay.
right behind the Bills. Bills are the favorite in the AFC. Seahawks plus 1,100 right now, so kind of right behind that. Like I said, the Patriots plus 17, Chiefs plus 17, kind of all in that mix. But yeah, I think if our friends at FanDuel were to put a prop on Alec Ingold touchdowns over under, they'd probably set it somewhere around 1.5. And I think I'd take the over. I think he's got a couple touchdowns in him this year. I think he's got 2 touchdowns in him. Just watching the
Okay.
way that McDaniel's it's just wild to watch red zone, man. I feel like every time they go red zone to end practice, someone's open. Just
Really?
somebody's open. McDaniel is scheming someone open. And, and they're running, you know, two tight ends, they're running 22 with a fullback and 2 tight ends. They're running 3 wides. There are so many multiple formations. It's 11, it's 12, it's 22. I don't think I've seen any 13 in red zone yet, but it's been fun just to see how creative and how it's not just, oh, let's throw the fade.
Right,
Let's
right.
you know, it's here's a bunch of big bodies. No, it's been so much pre-snap and guys like yesterday Q's touchdown. Um, was in the middle of the end zone, and he must have had a
Wide
yard
open.
of separation, just wide open, man. He was just coming on a
Well,
crosser right to left, um, wide open. And the one for Trey on Saturday was beautiful. He just kind of bent in, just like kind of on a quick slant a little bit, and just had a
yeah.
little window, and Herbert just rifled that thing in for a touchdown in the back of the end zone. So it's been fun, man. Red zone's been really fun to watch.
How about our boy Gustin? How about the tight end last year? You know, the
Gaston,
big
yeah.
plays he made. Gustin, did he any red zone? Is he red zone? Or is it all Jakku
He
or the big?
he is. Njoku had a nice rep over the middle that just went off the tip of his fingers. It was maybe thrown a little bit high, but he beat the linebacker, had him on his hip, his outside hip, and that's one where he could have taken it if it would have kind of come in stride. But there's a little bit of pressure in the backfield. I think every tight end is gonna have a few. I feel like like to me now that I'm watching it and it's all starting to make a little bit more sense. Like so much of this is red zone, right?
Right.
Look, Charlie Kolar is a great blocking tight end. Best they wanted to have him. He's so important to what they want to do. He's going to be a threat in the red zone. David Njoku, we know he's a red zone threat, man. Picking up Q's third-year option or fifth-year option for 17 million bucks. Dude's a red zone. He is important. Those big bodies in the red zone. Trey Harris with that toe tap in the back of the end zone, 6'3", over 200 pounds. Reds, like they wanted those big bodies for the red zone.
And the red zone is so tough, money. You know that the field changes. Now you can play cover four. You don't now the end
Right.
zone becomes the back of the end zone becomes a defender. It's really tough when you get on red zone, and that's why you're seeing, the OC say we got to get some big bodies. We got to make sure we're dominating red zone. So many times you see the red zone team settling for three or field goals, or field goals attempts because the red zone is the field shrinks and it's tougher on the offense. So it's great that you're seeing a red zone kind of masterful kind of offensive coordinator, McDaniel, saying, okay, look, this is where we're going to make our bread and butter because the red zone, you win and lose championships, especially in the red zone. You know how that can be. Sevens are a lot better than threes.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, red zone is, to me, it's like the ultimate sort of team drill, right? There's so
Yeah.
many decoys. There's so many guys that are picking up blocking assignments to try to pop somebody free. It's really a help necessary area of the field. It's not just, hey, we're going to run a bunch of one-on-ones and let's see if a guy can get a win. No, I mean, McDaniel is scheming this thing up where you've got guys moving, guys blocking, guys chipping that are just popping guys open and they're wide open. And it's kind of fun because normally, I don't know, I just feel like it's not like anything we've seen the last half decade, no matter who the coordinator was, whether it was Greg Roman or Kellen Moore or Joe Lombardi before that. I won't go back to Steichen. I felt like Steichen was super creative with some of the stuff he was doing, but yeah, it's been really fun. And I don't know how they decided to put this team together. Maybe it was scouts. Maybe it was, just having coached them previously. Maybe it was ZipRecruiter. Maybe that's how, because they were able to
Nice.
find help. People that help you out in the red zone, getting that chip to spring a guy open, to cash that touchdown in. It does not seem like much, but when someone goes the extra step, it makes a positive impression. If you're hiring, great candidates can also go the extra step. That is why you want them to tell you that they are interested. They do that on ZipRecruiter. It's how they stand out from the others. Try it for free right now, ziprecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter has a new feature, shows you the most interested qualified candidates first. You will meet the right people faster. ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology finds qualified candidates quickly. They can tell you in their own words why they're interested in your job. I want to score touchdowns. That's why I'm interested. No wonder ZipRecruiter is the #1 rated hiring site based on G2. So try it now. Meet your great candidates at ZipRecruiter who go the extra step for your job. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/audio. Again, that is ziprecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, meet your match on ZipRecruiter. There we go. I get the cowbell. We do have one Fresno Stater out there, Lo. That's why you got to get down. Our man Spomer is out there. Jacob Spomer.
Spomer?
Yes. He's listed as 6'2", 290. He might be. And he's just standing next to these gargantuan dudes, right? So he looks like he's about 4'4" and 85 pounds when he's in the middle of that group, because the rest of the offensive line are just gigantic. And he's like the one guy, but he's fun to watch. And he is that
nasty.
Yes, he is the quintessential, hey, I might be small, but here I come. He's got a lot of nasty to him. I love watching him. So Spomer's out there for you when you come down. I'm sure he'll be stoked to meet you. One of the all-time great Fresno State Bulldogs. Lorenzo Neal. Let me see if I can rip through some of this from Harbs yesterday. Said he wants to get that starting left guard within the next 10 practices. That was before practice yesterday, so make it 9 practices. They want to get that thing settled. Like I said, he mentioned that Aushika is currently in the lead, but Trey is one of their top 5 players at the position. So if you're ranking it, to me, Aushika is, to me, the clear number 1. And then I think behind it is Trey, maybe right here. And then I think you have a gap with Branson Taylor and Trevor Penning and Jake Slaughter. Let's see. Yeah, he mentioned Avery Smith and Shelley, your undrafted free agents at the rookies, the undrafted college free agents at corner. What do I have here? These are my notes from Q-Lad. Deep touchdown. Keaton drop touchdown. From DJ, you had Slater to 10. Already talked about that. Yeah, there you go. Kendall Williamson's. Oh, that was off Herbert. Kendall Williamson had his interception off Justin, intended for Trey Harris. So, and then I wrote Mesidor, crazy get off. I think this is from Saturday, and it would have been sack. Yeah, this is from Saturday. And then here's the 56. Good pressure versus DJ. That's Nadame. And then had a nice goal line breakup from Derwin. Let's see. Yeah. So I think that, I'm pretty sure that was, well, I don't know. Maybe that was from yesterday. Anyway, it's been a week since we've been on. Ryan Ficken talked to us. He's talking about how, there is competition at the returning, but Darius Davis has done it. However, Brenan Thompson, who didn't do it a lot in college, he did say while he didn't do it in games, he practiced it every week. He's like, I was always back there practicing. He's like, I've had plenty of reps, receiving punts. And Coach Ficken's like, yeah, that's very true, but it's different when you got dudes flying down the field, coming to your face. So no doubt he'll probably get some reps in the preseason there. He did mention that Marlowe Wax was a seasoned vet for him by midseason, and that now this year things are even slowing down more. And so to me, he's a lock to make the team. When I asked him about Junior Colson, he said he's getting there, that he's processing better. Yeah, Mesidor, the only thing he said was the only thing that's really different for him is film, is being coached on how to watch film and how to kind of, do that Khalil and the coaches and all that have helped him out. And that's sort of the bigger thing. But, we were asking him about coaching technique and like stuff like that. And he's like, my technique's my technique, man. He goes, I got my feet, I got my hands, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to take these guys. It's just kind of like one of those, I'm going to mess these guys up, man. Let's see. That's I think that's probably most of it, man.
I know that's a lot going out. When you're thinking about till next week, the game, got the Texans in a week. So what do you expect? What can fans and what can you expect from now to what do you expect from the offense, from the defense? What are you looking for? What should fans be looking for? Because after this week they'll start to taper off, get ready for the game, the preseason. What does that look like for the remaining of the week and next?
Yeah, I think you're, we talked about your battles, right? To me, it's Junior Colson, former 3rd-round pick, former captain of the Michigan Wolverines national championship team, first off-ball linebacker drafted in 2024, and just has dealt with injuries and appendectomy and has not been on the field, So I think it's It's that. I think it's Nadame Tucker, who we talked about, how much he flashed yesterday. He's 26, a 26-year-old rookie. He's a little bit undersized, and he played at Western Michigan. I think if he's 23 and played at Michigan State instead of Western Michigan with those numbers, the guy's the third-round pick. So I think watching him out there is going to be big. I feel like the defensive line is pretty much set. I think it's Tart, Barnett, or I'm sorry, Tart, Barrett, Aboigbe, Caldwell, Tomlinson. I think that's pretty much settled. And then corners, it's going to be, remember, corners were exciting last year, with Nico Reed and Eric Rodgers and what they did in the preseason. It's going to be fun to watch. And, it's like what Coach O'Leary told us about Genesis Smith. He's like, look, man, guy is fantastic. He sees it. He diagnoses. He closes. He's a ball hawk. He's a guy that can get his hands on a lot of balls and turn them and get turnovers. He's like, but I want to see him in the tunnel. I want to see it, man. Put those pads on, because that was the knock on him. Is he's just not a sound tackler, and when he's supposed to be your last line of defense, you kind of want a guy that can tackle back there. So that'll be good to watch him out there and how that tackling is coming along. That's the defensive side. And look, I think Kyle Kennard, I feel like it's very much prove it time.
If I'm going to ask, if I were to say, I know we're getting ready to wrap up. If I was going to tell you the one position, if you said, hey, look, here's the position that's up for grabs. Is it just clear? The one position, do you think that right now you don't have a clear starter? Is that the offensive left guard?
That's it.
If you was, and everywhere else you think this team has their starter?
Yeah, I think if you go through it, I mean, obviously the other four positions we've already been told are set. Beata, Strange, obviously Alt Slater, tight end. It's, those three guys are going to rotate in. We know what the running back looks like. Obviously know what quarterback looks like. Wide receivers, I think you've got four guys that that they're not looking for anybody outside to come in. They're good with those four guys, and there's a battle for the fifth. With Keandre and Darius Davis. So really on offense, it's one position. It's left guard, and I think they tried to address it in the offseason. They had a number for Zion. Like I said, he declined it. They had a number for Elton Jenkins. He wanted to go to Cleveland, and here we are. It's an open competition. Defense, I think it's. I don't think there's any starters. Well, I shouldn't say that. I do think that second safety, if they're going to play that too high shell, then that second safety, because Derwin's going to be the nickel, is probably the one. That's probably the only position. Is it Mickens? Is it Tony? Is it the rookie Genesis Smith? Like, those three will be in the mix for that. And then I think it's that rotation of corners. Is it Dante Jackson? It's Dante Jackson, Cam Hart, and Tarheeb. And if Derwin's your big nickel, is there an odd man out in there? Do they just rotate them and they all get the same amount of snaps like they did last year with those four guys, with Jackson, Still, Hart, and Ben St. Just? But I think those are pretty much settled. And like I said, I think it's, your nucleus of the defense is set. I think it's just, like I said, if you want to pick one position, it would be that second safety next to Elijah Molden.
So you feel comfortable with the linebackers? I know,
Yeah,
the
DP
middle,
and Dayon.
DP.
Yeah, it'll be DP and Dan. And then, like I said, it's the guys behind them. Like, is Marlowe Wax going to overtake or Delshon Phillips? Like, right now, the second string backers have been Troy Dye and Delshon Phillips. Like, everybody's excited about Marlowe, and understandable. He was really great in Week 18. He's a great special teams player. He's young. He's new. But, man, Delshon was just as good in that Bronco game, and he brings some thump to that position, man. He is a physical player. So I think, is Delshon Phillips ahead of Troy Dye? Does he now take that third linebacker spot? Is there a competition there? I think is probably the more interesting one, despite everybody, I think, being more focused on Junior Colson versus Marlowe Wax at the back end of that. To me, like, guys, we saw Troy Dye a lot last year. And so does Delshon, is that sort of an open competition between Dye, Delshon, and Marlowe Wax?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because it's crazy. I think you'd see this too, Money. You see guys flash at practice, and you're like, oh my God, they're having great practice. And how much, if the listeners are out there and they're watching this, how much do you think you put weight on practice compared to a preseason game or the games? How does coaches, in your opinion, weigh those? Because there's sometimes great practice players, great game players. How do you weigh that? What's that code or what's that balance that you think you go into the consideration?
Yeah, I think they tell you it's practice, right? Which makes sense. There's a lot more reps there, and they're coaching them, and they can see their movement skills. But to me, like every year, we saw Tony Jefferson make the team because of a preseason game in Dallas. We saw Austin Eckler make the team because of a preseason game in San Francisco. Saw Nico Reed make the team, I Bleav, because of that Hall of Fame game and what he was able to put on tape after that. Eric Rodgers, 2 interceptions in it. Get like preseason games, you can poo-poo them all you want, but those guys that make the team on the back end of this roster is guy 52 or 53, they tend to show out in at least one of these preseason games. It's just happened every single year. Michael Bandy, had a preseason where he had in 3 games he had like 200 and something yards and 3 touchdowns. Like it's just that's the way Simi Fehoko had a great preseason, with those preseason games. So yeah, I do think there is something to that the games do matter for that particular, because that's what you want to know, right? Hey, if I got injuries and I got to throw this guy in for a half, is he going to be up for it, man? When the lights are on and the pads are crashing. And so when they can at least show you, yeah, dude, I know my job's on the line. I know this is, I mean, you can speak to it better than me, Lo, but like it's the idea that there's no pressure in a preseason game for guys 54 through 90. It's more pressure than the Super Bowl, man. It's your career. It's your livelihood.
Absolutely. I remember like yesterday playing in the Japan Bowl for the New Orleans Saints, being a fourth round pick, and you got Brad Muster and Dalton Hillier in front of you. You think they're only going to keep one fullback, getting in the preseason game and running over guys, and and where Jim Moore said, "Hey, look, I flat out wanted to cut the guy. I thought I was going to cut him. He looked horrible at practice." And then you get and the running back coach said, "Hey, Neal, you got to pick it up." And get in the game, and it's a different mentality. You run harder, you play physical, your mindset changes. It's practice. Yeah, you still practice hard, but it's something about, like you're talking about, that game. Okay, the endorphins are going, and you're trying to make a name. You're trying to get a place to stay, trying to find a home. So without a doubt, preseason game, like you said, if guys think, oh, preseason's nothing, I'm just going through preseason, you're crazy. If you're one of those back half guys, or your guy drafted late, your preseason is your season. And you're not just practicing, you're not just performing for your team. There's 31 other teams that get to see your tape. So
Yeah.
you better make sure that you practice and you have performed on a high level. We talk about it all the time, Money. Preseason, Wes Walker,
Yeah.
what he was able to do for the Chargers. You had a guy, in Tim DeWhite, who was a veteran guy, and you had Wes Walker, punt return, all those things he did in preseason. It made it very hard. And when they released him, you see how quick teams came. So preseason is everything, like you said, for that back half of the team.
Yeah. It's by the time we do this next week, I think we'll have a much better idea, especially about that left guard position. That'll start to hash itself out. Even though he said 10 practices, that'll be an extra, 5? We'll still have 5 left before they really want to settle on a guy. But, we'll still have an opportunity to talk before the first game. And we'll have that first game on Thursday, man. And then bang, 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 3 in a row, all Thursday games, all 7 p.m. local. So it'll be 5 p.m. the Houston one here, Pacific time. And then the other 2 will be 7 p.m.s against the Rams and 49ers. And then we'll get ready for week 1 against
Let's go,
the
baby.
Cardinals. Yeah. Great to see you
Bolt
back,
up.
Lo.
You too.
I hope I see you Monday. Be
Yeah.
sure to throw it up on Instagram or whatever. Let the people know you're coming down, because they're going to bring out all those beautiful number 41s and get you to sign everything.
Let's do it.
Looking forward to seeing you, bud.
You too. I'll definitely hit you up when I'm on my way down. Let's go. Bolt up. Let's make it a great season. My Chargers, playoffs, baby. No, Super Bowl. Let's go.
Let's go.